Hey YouTube, it's Aiden's Hands again. Today we have a Shire's axial valve section with pretty sluggish action. I've just never done anything to it. I just got these recently. And we're going to learn how to take these apart, clean them, and put them back together. Basically every step that I do when I do maintenance on axials like this. Let's get started. Well, what do you need to do this? Well, all of you need some axials, of course. I like to have this cutting pad. I put it in my lap to work on the valves. I've talked about this in my rotor video, but I have more control here than I do on a surface like this, mainly because I have more room and this has a little more give. I have a screwdriver with a nice small flathead. I also have the other heads, of course, if I need them. I've got a Delrin mallet. You can also use a rawhide mallet, same deal. I've got some drift punches here. I'm going to try these for the first time, actually. I've never had these before. We'll talk about why we use those in a bit. You don't absolutely need these, but I think they would be preferred. Um, I've got a trumpet cleaning rod. This is actually for trumpets. I just found it out recently with some cheesecloth. That's for cleaning these slides. And then, of course, we got to put stuff on afterwards. So I have regular ultra pure valve oil. I have light bearing oil, and I have linkage, lever, and key oil, as well as heavy tuning slide grease. That should cover pretty much everything. And if I forget something, we'll find out in a bit. So to get started on actually doing this, we have to take tuning slide off and then take the bell off. If you've never done that before, obviously a tuning slide just pulls off the back. The bell is attached with these guys. You'll spin these lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Lefty-loosey, both those off and work the bell off. Sometimes it's helpful to have the tuning slide still in while you do this, sometimes not. Anyway, my stuff is detached already. And now we're going to find every other instance of these uh, attachment points, and we're going to loosen all of them. There are 5, looks like, on this instrument. I'm going to loosen all these. The whole reason we have to do this, of course, is that axials don't come apart the way rotors do, which is this way, but they come apart this way, axially. And so the entire valve section literally has to come apart. So those are all loose. I'm now going to take out the F tuning slide that's going to be put in a safe place behind me here. Take out the G flat tuning slide. A little slower on this horn. There we go. These are nice and well greased. We're going to be redoing that anyway, though. All right, that is everything apart. And what you'll notice now is, assuming all of these are out of the way, is you can now rotate the G flat from the F valve. And then what we're going to do is, these are connected here, this attachment point. Slowly see if we can take these apart. And no, we can't. So we're going to keep this together. What we're going to do is we're going to get our screwdriver and we're going to detach this arm right here. Is this too big? No, it's not. There we go. So I'm keeping my fingers around this screw because this screw is not captive and it will want to disappear once it comes out. There we go. Got that screw. We're going to put that in a safe place. And now these will come apart. I'm going to just gently take these apart. We'll do the G flat valve first because it's kind of a more contained piece. We'll get this apart and clean it. All right, we've got our G flat valve here. Let's take it apart. Start by loosening this lock ring on the valve. I'm going to loosen this until it is totally loose. Remember, we've got these all nice and loose. I'm going to put one hand on this side of the valve and one hand on this side. I'm going to worry these apart nice and gently. Ta-da! Got our casing here. Looks pretty clean. Set that aside for the moment. And then we've got our rotor and the back plates. Rotor looks a little dirtier. We got some stuff on here, but not too bad. What we have to do now is, one, we can take this lock ring off. And now we have to remove the stop arm, the guy that actually hits the bumpers here, from the rotor so we can actually get the rotor off and clean everything. So removing this stop arm, let's use our screwdriver here. Get in the center of the screw and remove it. This is going to be two separate ways of removing the stop arm. I'm going to do the preferred way first. First way is to lose the screw on the floor, of course. First, we're going to see if the stop arm just comes off, and of course, no, it doesn't. They never do. And then I've got my drift punches here. These are basically just a piece of metal with a big end and a little end, and they're different sizes. That one's a little too small. We're looking for one that fits inside the opening in the stop arm, but doesn't go inside the threads because we don't want to mess those threads up. This one, it's just the right size. It's not going in the threads. I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to kind of cradle the entire assembly here. I'm going to give this some light taps, and there we go. Stop arm removed, set that aside along with the screw that we haven't lost. And that means rotor and back plate can now come apart. All right, now that everything's apart, and yes, I did find that screw. It looks like the one from the Iron Giant, if you think about it. Cool reference there for all the cool kids. The one tool I forgot to mention, of course, is a rag. I'm just using what is basically a cut-up t-shirt. So if you didn't have one of these to begin with, not something super hard to find. And I'm just going to give everything a nice scouring. Obviously, we want this to be pretty clean so we're not inscribing a bunch of dirt into this. I'm going to go over all this stuff, get it nice and clean. There's the lock surface on the outside here. I'm going to give that another go. Yeah, there's some nasty stuff in there. And then we have some holes here, right? We got the port that actually leads to the G-flat wrap. I'm just going to give that a nice pinky clean. These aren't too bad, it looks like. And then most importantly, I'm going to make a nice small portion of this and go through the bearing here and give that its own specific little clean. There we go. Cool. So that side's pretty clean. I'm going to move on to the casing. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to give this a nice thorough scouring with a rag. I can feel like slide grease and stuff coming off, some thicker oil that's been left in here. Honestly, these are not that dirty. They were just slow. And I'm trying to get to the bearing surface, the bottom of this cone, kind of the last little part. Make sure we can see this, is actually where the valve touches. It doesn't touch along its entire surface. It's only on the last little part of the top. You can see the shinier part of the top of this cone. That's where the valve rests and moves on the casing. So the rest of the casing, we'd like it to be clean, but it doesn't really matter because it's not actually touching the valve. We're just trying to get the stuff out of here. Okay, that's pretty clean. And last of all, the rotor itself. Want to be careful with this. You just don't want to drop it. And I'm going to give this, again, a nice clear scouring. This is something you would do with a chem clean if you're very serious about it. I'm just doing the dry clean today because usually this is honestly enough to kind of get all the old oil off, start again with new stuff. You might have to do this once or twice if there's a lot of old crud that's been sitting on there for a while, but this is not that hard to do. Get a little bit into the ports. Sometimes these ports, especially the open ones, which I think is this, right, will be really nasty because they've been played through a lot and just not cleaned. So I'm giving those little cleanings of their own. Sometimes, if they're really gross, I'll get the trumpet cleaning rod and I'll put the cloth through with this. I don't need to do that today. Cool, so everything is now clean. Now that our parts are clean, we're going to oil it and put it back together. So on our surfaces here, we've got light bearing oil and we've got valve oil. We want valve oil on kind of most of the surfaces, so like this backing plate, I'm just going to cover that in valve oil. But on the bearing, which is the little guy here, spindle, I'll put some bearing oil in there. I'm going to put the rotor on, spin it around nice and smooth. I'm not feeling any like sand or nastiness in there. And I'm going to grab this guy. Let's put some bearing oil on the bearing. Nice. And we're going to put valve oil on the outside. Just for kicks, more stuff is fine. I want to make sure all of these little locking rings are out of the way when we put this together. There's a lot of stuff has to line up. And of course, let's not forget the lock ring as I do this. There we go, get this out of the way. And just for fitment purposes, we're going to tighten these back up a little bit. Not all the way. Put the lock ring back on. Tighten that down. We're going to get our stop arm, which of course is not in the right place. Put that in the right place. Stop arm back on. Don't worry about the screw yet. We're going to move the valve and make sure it can actually move. Tighten this down all the way. Again, just hand tight. We're not using any tools on this. That is nice and hand tight. And this moves very well, which means I'm done. If this did not move very well, that means there's still foreign stuff in here, or things are perhaps misaligned, and that's your hint. Take it apart, clean it again, do everything from the beginning. All right, G flat side is feeling very good. F side, still pretty slow. It's hard to show on camera, but that's just not fast. Notice when I'm doing this, I'm testing it, I'm getting the G flat lever out of the way. So otherwise, it's hitting on the lever. Remember, we've got this loose, it's out of the way, no slide in. We are going to, you know what? Let's do this the smart way. I'm going to remove this linkage. You don't always have to do this, but on the Shires, it seems to make sense. Removing this linkage, and again, I'm going to be smart, not put this on anything hard. I'm going to make sure my fingers are nearby to catch this screw. The stop arm screw is much larger. That was easy to find on the ground. This one, not so much. There's 2 linkage screws. Okay, now that we have that out, linkage is out of the way. That's out of the way. Loosen that lock ring. This one is captive, it seems like. We're not going to be able to get rid of it until we get our stop arm off. Yeah. So now that these are apart, one hand on this side of the valve, with the other one on the other side, and worry them apart. You notice this is actually hitting up here. That's going to get in your way, so just be aware that that's something that might happen. All right, we got our F casing here. Thankfully, it says F on the inside in case you got lost. Set that aside. Don't fall off. And then, of course, we've got our same dealio as before. I'm going to loosen the screw. This is, again, if you did not have a drift punch, you would loosen this just a little bit, tap it out with a mallet, loosen a little more, tap a little more. I'm just going to use a drift punch because I am fancy and I spent $8 on the drift punch set at Harbor Freight. There's a stop arm screw, which is not going out this time. Got our drift punch, got our mallet. I'm holding the rotor with my pinky right now so it doesn't just fall. And things are not moving. Keep trying. I'm trying not to hit too many things against each other. There we go. That's why I moved down. I don't want that rotor to fall very far. Drift punch put aside. Stop arm came out. And this, my locking plate is forever captive. Got a bunch of leftover oil on my hands. And now I'm going to clean. Same as before, I'm going to clean the backing plate first with a cleanish portion of this rag. Just going over this. Get all the old oil and moisture off. Hit that surface on the edge. Nice. I'm going to pinky out the ports. My pinky thankfully fits in 593 tubing. I understand not everybody's pinkies will. I'm going to go through the spindle here. Spindle opening. Give that a nice clean. Okay, that's the backing plate. We can see there's a little bit of stuff right here at the edge of this one. If you can feel it with your hand, that might be something to work at a bit more. This feels very smooth to my hand, so I'm not going to worry about it. Or maybe it's your fingernail. I don't feel anything. This is a bearing surface. The entire thing needs to be very flat in order for the rotor to move well on it. On this, doing the same thing. Very yellow in here. I think someone was probably using Hetman valve oil, which leaves a yellow residue. That's why I stopped using it myself. Just getting in there, get down to the bearing surface. Again, this bearing feels good. It's not harsh on the finger. Get in this port a little bit. Sometimes these ports can be kind of gross. These valves are not that dirty. Good. Nice and clean. Get to the rotor. Again, just don't want to drop it. Get this outside surface. Yeah, lots of yellow on here. I would assume that is leftover Hetman, which is very common. I'm going to get the bearing surface. I'm putting one finger inside the valve and moving that. And then on the backing plate, we got more nastiness. Getting that off. What's cool is when you put new valve oil in this, it will help take off residue of the old stuff, which might mean that you need to clean it a short time later. This cleaning might not last long if you're getting a bunch of grunge out of the valves. But then the second and perhaps third cleanings will be very good. Let me give this a blow off because sometimes lint from your rag is going to get stuck in there. All right, yeah, let's grab our backing plate, nice and dry. Put in some light bearing on the spindle, valve oil all over. It's good to test. Yeah, that feels pretty good. It's not freely spinning, and I can feel something in there. I'm going to take that off. It's kind of suctioned on. And I'm going to clean this all off again. Sometimes the oil might have found something, and now it's getting cleaned off. Since this is oil-based, you can feel free to touch this with your hands. You don't need to worry about leaving your finger residue that much, unless you just got really gross hands. Put that aside. I'm going to clean off the back of the valve again as well. I'm going to make sure there's no lint or anything left on here. Nothing I can feel with my hands. Valve oil. Bearing inside this spindle. I keep forgetting the name of the spindle. Put that back on. Turn it. That feels better. It doesn't feel amazing. That might be something we have to worry about later. There's a little bit of harder spot right there. It's feeling better. All right. Got our cone here. I'm just going to blast that with valve oil. A little spin, or oh my god, bearing oil on the bearing. It's not a spindle. I just want to say spindle really badly. There we go. Put this together. I don't want to orient this down or else the valve will fall out, so I got to make sure it's ready. Put that together. We're going to tighten down the lock ring. Before I do that, we're going to make sure the valve's in a place where I can actually move it with the stop arm. It's never in the right spot, and sometimes you won't be able to move it without the stop arm on. There we go. It's moved. I'm going to tighten this down fully. There we go. Hand tight. Put the stop arm on. And that feels amazing. It's interesting to note that when I had this ring a little bit loose, it felt really bad. It was not moving very well at all because the surfaces are not totally aligned. Once this is finger tight, hand tight, I should say, feels great. Okay, I feel good about that. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up. I'm going to put the Iron Giant screw back in. Start it with your hand so it doesn't fall out. Or start a crawl off beeping somewhere. This one does not want to start. There we go. This is where it's handy to have the electronics repair screw with the spinny guy on the back. Makes it easier to put these in. Tighten this down. Just hand tight. Don't go too far on these. You want to be able to take it off later. Cool. Let's put the rest of this back together. First, we got to put this F linkage back together again. Thankfully, the resting place, this linkage is off to the side. It's actually pretty easy to get to. I'm going to put this screw through the mini ball first, very carefully, just hanging there. And then I'm going to get things aligned so I can actually put it back together. Yeah, let's put the valve in the right spot first. There we go. Started. And again, just hand tight. Just a little bit on there. And then I'm going to get the valve out of the way. Move that and make sure none of the linkage is binding up. I'll do this now since we have easier access, but I'm going to use my linkage lever and key. I don't know what key means in this context. I'm going to put that on these mini balls. Both sides. That one's a little easier to get to. And on the lever itself, our lever saddle. Put that on all these. And if it weren't for these things making noise, this would be very quiet. Cool, let's do the same thing after we get these together. Get that linkage out of the way. Put these together. And rotate. All right, just kidding. Unrotate. We want to get this back out of the way because we have to attach this linkage, of course. A little bit annoying. But again, we're going to use gravity on our side. We're going to place the screw in here. We're going to get this started on this. Just like that. Look at that. I did that in like one try. Tighten that down. Always hand tight. Nothing tighter. Boop. And now we can rotate back. And tighten down all of our attachment points. I'm sure these have names. I don't really care. There we go. And what we can do is clean our hands off because they're gross and feel that much better valve action. If these are noisy at all, it's because I haven't done the ball joints on the second valve yet. And probably because the bumpers need to be replaced. I'm not changing the bumpers out today because I don't actually have the material to do that. There we go. All four sides of the ball joints. And then, of course, we want to do the lever saddle itself. It's really a bummer when the lever saddle gets worn out because there's just no saving it without changing an entirely new lever saddle. Now, this is noisy because that activated bumper at the bottom, it's a little worn out, I think. But everything is tight. That is so much faster than it was. I have a feeling these seal really well. Now, last up is slides. All right, we got two slides here. We obviously have a tuning slide as well, main tuning slide. I don't have it handy, but we can clean these up and get them prepped to go on. So first, I'm going to remove any previous, what's it called? Tuning slide grease from the slide, just with the rag here. I'm definitely going to be cleaning this. I'm going to check the ends. Usually there's some kind of built up at the end. These are pretty clean. I think this must have been cleaned recently. So that's one good slide. Let's get into the F. Getting off this old slide grease. I have a feeling this is Hetman, and you don't want to leave on slide grease that's not kind of compatible with the valve oil you're using because it'll drip into the valves and then they'll not have a good day. So those are both clean. And now, of course, we have to clean both sides, which is where our trumpet cleaning rod comes in handy. I'm using some ratty old cheesecloth I have sitting around. I've used this for a long time. But you can use just a rag if you want. I'll put some of this over. I'm going to first measure how long these are and make sure I don't go too far and dent the valve tubing. But I'm going to give this a nice clean, get out that old slide grease. Do the same thing down here. A lot of people forget to do this, and we end up with just like multiple generations of slide grease existing in the same place at the same time, and it's gross. This one we're not worried about hitting anything. Not really this one either. Nice and long. And because we have the main tuning slide guy right here, we're going to clean that off as well, make sure there's nothing on the inside. And we're ready to grease these up. I like to use Ultra Pure Heavy tuning slide lube because these don't move that often. I'd much rather they just stay and I don't have to re-put on stuff that often. Regular is fine as well, but unless you're moving the tuning slides all the time, I find the heavy to be better. I'm going to put a healthy amount on my finger. I'm going to go starting at the end and just kind of work this way in. Once I've kind of used that up, I'm going to put it in the correct tube here. Good, and we can use that to hold it for a moment. Get another healthy amount, not too much. You don't want to just like waste a lot. Take this back out. That is nice and well fitted now, that's for sure. Ease off the pressure, there we go. Start at the end. There we go. Make sure this is evenly distributed. Take that back out, and one slide is now complete. Put down that F valve. I'm gonna actually release that for a second, push this in, and yeah, nice pop. This is a well sealing valve, which is good. Notice how I'm pushing quite hard on this. It is going very slowly, which is exactly what I want. There's one done. Second valve. A little less, obviously, a shorter valve. Slide. Put that on. It's to hold that in place for a moment. Not too much. There we go. There we go. And last slide. We're almost done. Almost ready to use these. This one we don't have to take out all the way. Put that in there. Gonna open that for a moment. Let's leave it closed. Nice pop, and I did not move that far either. That's good. So another well-sealing valve, and that is an entire valve section put together. Now what I'm going to do is I have stuff all over my hands. I'm going to clean my hands off first. And what the cool thing is about Ultra Pure, and this is probably the case with Hetman's as well, is now I have slide grease, super tacky. This is really heavy stuff. It's all over my hands. And what you can do is just use valve oil, and it cuts it right off. Basically just turns it into more valve oil. Make sure there's no more on my hands, and I'm going to wipe down my hands before I go wash them, get most of the oil off here, and voila, no more slide grease. And the last thing, even though I have oil on my hands now, is I'm going to wipe off this whole valve section. There's extra oil, slide grease everywhere. Get all this nasty stuff off so you're not just leaving it on your shirt or whatever. You're not getting any left on the levers so that next time you play it, you're just getting it all over your hands. And that is one complete, very well working Shire's axial base valve section. Obviously, if you're doing a tenor section, don't do that valve. Ta-da! That's all I got for today. I'm going to go wash my hands. I'm going to put this in the washing machine because even though there might be oil in it, there's just not that much oil, and you can just keep using these things for a long time. I'll see you all in the next video where I get to put that valve section together with something. Yay!